Okay, well, good afternoon, students and faculty, and welcome to the annual sponsored program Student Undergraduate Research Fellowships webinar. My name is Josh Markham, and I'll be moderating our webinar today. And I'm accompanied today by my colleagues listed here, along with Dr. Pamela Ashcraft. And today you'll get a chance to hear from each of them and to learn more about how they can work to help you in submitting a competitive SURF proposal. UCA students and faculty in the past have had a great deal of success with this program. And I know for our staff, this is one of our favorite programs because we get a chance to work with students in a more direct way. And so we really want to see that trend continue. We really want to see success with students and their mentors. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. We have quite a bit of information to cover, and I am going to turn things over to the Director of Sponsored Programs, Joy Ritchie.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Hi, everyone. I'm just tickled to see 20 people logged into this. That is so exciting for us. And it looks like we've got a good group of faculty and students. And in fact, we're going to start off with a poll. Here we go, to see who is here today. We'd love to know who all is in the room. So if everyone will take a minute to take the poll. Oh, I haven't launched it. I'm sorry. I'm new to webinar tech. Here we go. Now you can see it. There we go. Okay. I'm going to share that now. So 40% faculty, 10% seniors, 35% juniors, 5% sophomores, and 15% freshmen. Well, welcome. That's a great distribution, and we're so glad you all are here. Josh, I'm sorry I did jump ahead in the, there we go. Sorry, I did jump ahead in the PowerPoint. So while you all are looking at that, I will go ahead. I'm just going to give sort of a big, broad and very brief overview of the SURF program. SURF, as Josh said, stands for Student Undergraduate Research Fellowship, and it provides, sorry, I've got to close the poll out of my way, undergraduate students with an opportunity to develop a sustained relationship with a faculty mentor while they carry out a research project. All disciplines are eligible for this and are encouraged to apply. And it is, as Josh said, really fun for us to see your projects and watch those relationships build and see people who come back for it. The funding, this is not UCA funding, this is state funding. It comes from the Arkansas Department of Higher Education. This program's been around since 1993. And like Josh said, UCA has been very successful with it, and we're really hoping that this will be another record-breaking year for us. Yeah, Josh, if you'll click on that link, Josh is gonna take us real quickly to the sponsored programs website. We do have a page dedicated to the SURF program, and Josh, you could just scroll slowly through this. So I don't want to give too many spoilers away. I don't want to ruin everybody else's presentation. So there's a lot of good details here. What is, really what SURF is right now. You can see sort of what the awards are and who gets what portion of it. Eligibility is covered. What the checklist for your application when you get ready for it. We will work very carefully and closely with you to make sure your application is complete and ready. We have an internal deadline before the state deadline. Here, Josh is coming on the, here, keep going down there. There's the procedure for, all the steps you should be taking, and then a list of important dates and just some general information. So if you haven't gotten a copy of this presentation yet, you will, and this is easy to find. If you Google UCA sponsored program SURF, it'll take you right to this page. We keep it updated, and it's a really good resource. So I think that's the end of my bit. I do want to say I'm doing this sort of webinar tech of this, and I'll be keeping an eye on questions in chat. Our panelists have asked that you submit your questions through the chat so that they can all see them, and you can either send your questions to all panelists or to all panelists and attendees. It just, if you want to send it just to us, it'll be sort of an anonymous question. If you send it out, everyone will be able to see it. I think we're going to try to do some answering as we go. If there's something we don't get to during the presentations, I'll make sure and call it to the attention of the team. And that's it. I'm actually going to turn off my camera, and because I'm using the Dean of the Graduate School's account, you're going to see a photo of her. And so that's not my picture. We have had a long discussion about this. It's a little weird, but I'm going to do it. So here we go. Thank you, Josh.
Well, hello, everyone. It's me again. And so I am here to talk a little bit more about the proposal development process, kind of the high level stuff. So as a grant writer here on our campus, I get to work with faculty and staff on their grant proposals. And I focus kind of on the narrative side of it and how to craft that. And so this will be my third year working closely with the SURF program. And so I wanted to take this time to share a little bit about some of the things that I have observed that tended to indicate success. And so the first thing that I wanted to emphasize is to really bring an understanding of the role of the mentor, both to from the faculty side and from the student side. And so Dr. Ashcraft, her presentation is really going to go into some detail on the role of the mentor, but the main thing that I want to emphasize is to really view this as a collaboration. The most successful proposals that I've had a chance to work with, it was very, very clear to me that those students had been working closely with their mentor. They had been receiving kind of some guidance on their research methodology, maybe some trimming down on their background information. And so that collaborative effort is really clear. And the opposite of that is also clear when the student has not been working closely with their mentor in a collaborative way. It really shows. And so that brings me to this idea of a proactive student versus a reactive student. And so that proactive student is the one that is asking questions, is reaching out to their mentor on a frequent basis and trying to kind of stay ahead of that checklist. And the reactive student is, the student who can potentially fall victim to some of those perils that can be involved with procrastination. And so we really want to encourage students and their mentors to be that proactive person and to try to stay in touch with those checklists and to not be afraid to ask questions. Our staff is obviously here to help. The last thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is a few guides that we have put together. And so these guides are there to help you with your proposal narrative. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time going into detail of this, but two of the main requirements for a successful proposal submission is a 5-page narrative, double-spaced, and then a 1-page summary page. And so often students are asked, like, well, what needs to go in that proposal narrative in that 5 pages? And so this outline is meant to give you a little bit of structure. You can find this on that website that we showed you earlier, and I can also send this to you directly. But this is a good way of organizing a proposal narrative if you're just not sure where to start. As I've noted here, this is meant to just be a guide, but your discipline will vary in how you organize things or some of the terminology that you use, and that's totally okay. The next outline that I just wanted to show you is a template for your summary page. And so this does have a requirement that it needs to be formatted in this way. And then you need to provide this information. So what I encourage people to do is to complete that 5-page narrative first. And then once you feel pretty good about where you are with that, to come in and write this summary so that you can provide this information without a whole lot of editing back and forth. So that is the information that I have for right now. I'm going to be turning things over now to Dr. Pamela Ashcraft. She has served as a reviewer for the SURF program for some time, and she has a lot of good information that she can share with you all.
Hi, Josh. Are you going to show my slides, or do you want me to share my screen?
I have your slides. I'll show them right here.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for sitting in on this presentation about the SURF fellowship grants. And as Josh said, I have been a reviewer for probably 7 or 8 years. So I do have a little bit of the insider's view to share with you. Some things that you should be aware of is that the amount of money allocated for these awards, it really changes every year. It depends on what the state allocates to the Arkansas Department of Higher Education. But typically it's somewhere between $100,000 and perhaps $115,000 or $120,000. We typically will receive about 200 applications each year from students all across Arkansas. Now, the review panel has talked about this for many, many years. Typically, about 75% of those applications come from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. And while we do expect to see more applications from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, we shouldn't be seeing, the discrepancy should not be that great. And we think that that is because a lot of times the students and or the mentors from other universities feel a little bit intimidated by that. But let me tell you, don't. We make sure that we award applicants from every institution across the state. So UCA usually does very well. Some of the things that we look at on the review panel is certainly the students' performance and accomplishments, like their GPA, extracurricular activities, and that does not have to be sports, just things that show that you are a well-rounded person, that you are active outside of the classroom, because, you know, you need to be well-rounded for your own mental health and self-care. The appropriateness of courses completed for the proposed research. And what that means is, have you had all the general education courses that you should have completed up to this point? Have you had a basic research course? If you're doing a proposal that is related to something in biology, have you had a couple of biology courses so that you have some of that basic knowledge? The letters of support are important. The letter of support from your mentor, what we're looking for there is that your mentor actually knows you. It's not just a stock letter or a form letter that they just send in. And trust me, when you look at this many applications, you can tell when the mentor actually knows the student. And then 2 letters of reference, and typically those will come from perhaps another faculty member or the chairperson of your department. If you have a part-time job or work with a community group or are involved in extracurricular activities, that could actually come from one of those individuals that knows you as well. Okay, Josh, next one. So what about your mentor? On the scoring sheet, we actually do award points based on your mentor. So one thing that it says is that we look to see if the mentor has had prior experience supervising students in the discipline. So if you're submitting a nursing application or mathematics or biology, we want to make sure that your mentor has supervised students in that particular discipline. However, there is a section on the scoring sheet for us to award points for new mentors or new faculty members, because this is also a very important relationship for them to have with you, not just for you to have with them. And we want to also encourage new mentors and new researchers. And then we will look at the mentor's experience related to this project. And how we do that is that the mentor has to submit a CV, a curriculum vitae. So we can look and see that if you're doing a nursing project, that your mentor matches. It's someone in nursing, not someone in another discipline. Okay. So the things that we actually look at in regard to your proposed project are things like the feasibility of the project. Based on what you have presented in your application, is it feasible that you can complete this in 1, 2, or 3 semesters? Is it significant that you talk about what the outcomes might be or what you expect? And then the appropriateness of the methodology. And this is where your mentor will really help you. If you are collecting data, you need to make sure that it's appropriate for the research question or the clinical question you want to answer. Is there scientific merit? So what we mean by this, and I'm looking at our scoring sheet, we look at things like, does it address an area of importance to the discipline? Do you utilize established scientific principles? Do you demonstrate or talk about how this knowledge will be gained from your study? And is the problem or the topic of value to the larger scientific community? We also look at plans for dissemination. Are you going to do a poster presentation, a podium presentation? Are you going to, write a manuscript with your mentor? We're interested in how you're going to get the information to the general public. You also, with your mentor, will develop a budget, and sponsored programs can work with you on that because it's very detailed and specific on how that has to be done. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is the clarity. And by that, we mean the clarity of your writing. Because one thing that we can tell is when a student has written the narrative for the application versus when they have cut and pasted something from their mentor's previous grant application or manuscript. We want to see that the student has written this with assistance from their mentor. And it's very, very obvious. And so when we see that a student has simply cut and pasted something that their mentor has previously written, they don't get as many points as those of you as students who are learning the process and writing on your own. Okay, Josh. So I have questions here, but I think that according to the schedule, we're going to wait and do questions at the end. So I'll be happy to answer those when the time comes.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Ashcraft. That was, as always, excellent information. And again, we will be fielding your questions towards the end of our presentation. So next we have another poll question. And so I will go ahead and let Joy deploy that, but we will be turning things over from here to our grant administrators, Suzanne Welchkin and Matthew Smith.
So, hi everyone. I'm Suzanne Wilchin, Grant Administrator in Sponsored Programs. And so here's our poll, and we'll wait for Joy to give us our results. Okay, great. So first timers, welcome. Always feel free to ask us questions along the way as you're preparing your proposal and getting ready for submission. And for those of you who are reapplying, thank you for being here. Your questions are always welcome as well. So I'm going to talk about eligibility, our internal registration process, and the application checklist. So the first 3 items on this list. I will point out that SURF is a wonderful opportunity to become familiar with the grant seeking and grant writing process. Working through the proposal preparation and submission process is very transferable to any number of applications after graduation. So definitely take some pride in getting an application submitted regardless of the funding outcome. Okay, Josh, could you, there we are. One of the great things about the SURF program is that it provides funding for all majors and academic expressions of research, scholarship, and creative endeavor. Our submission rate at UCA has ranged from 5 applications to 22 or 23 applications. And our award rate has varied over the years. Historically, it's been just under 50%. Last year, 100% of our applications were funded, so it's definitely worth submitting, throwing your hat into the ring. SURF also allows for multiple awards over the course of your undergraduate career. So a long-term project could receive up to 3 years of funding. And I noticed one of our questions is about how to change that up for a continuing project, and I will let either Dr. Ashcraft or Josh address that question. But in terms of applicant eligibility, here are some guidelines to keep in mind. The reviewers are looking for a GPA of 3.25 or higher, full-time enrollment, so 12 or more credit hours, 30 or more college credit hours by January 1st of the funded year, so by January 1st, 2021. A faculty mentor, you must be a US citizen or resident alien, and you must be enrolled in an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree program. Good. Let's see, Josh, can you go to the next and the next? Okay. Oh, we lost our button. So the next step is, after this workshop, is to register to submit an application. This is just a Google form. It is strictly an internal registration. It's something that helps our office manage our workflow and gives us some good contact information in case we need to reach you or your mentor. If you could please complete the registration form by the beginning of October, we'd really appreciate it. We also accept late registrations on a case-by-case basis. So faculty members, if you have a student who comes into you in October and wants to apply and submit an application, feel free to have them register and get in touch with them, or get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to work with them, kind of lay out the time frame and the work plan and go from there. So once you get a copy of the slides from this presentation, you can use this big red registration now or register now button on the slide to take you to the registration form, or you can follow the this link to this SPO SURF webpage and register that way. Okay, so finally, let's look at some of the documents you'll need to include in your application package. Let me preface this by saying there are a lot of parts to this particular opportunity, and we've tried to help by providing a lot of checklists as well as links to documents on our webpage. But in general, here's an overview. There are 3 forms to complete: the cover page, a form for yourself, and a form for your mentor. The cover page should only have your mentor's signature on it when you turn it into the sponsored programs office around mid-October. Our office will get the provost signature for you, so don't worry about the provost signature. You'll need your most recent transcript and your current class schedule. Please order an official transcript from the registrar's office. If you request a hard copy, just bring the sealed envelope to our office and we'll take care of it from there. Your class schedule can be a printout or emailed to me or to Matthew as a PDF from your student account. I'll also say here, it's very likely that you'll kind of be assigned one grant administrator or the other, but you can, if you have questions and one of us isn't available, you're certainly welcome to talk to either one of us. So numbers 6 through 8 are parts of your proposal narrative. And this is where Josh's expertise can really help your prose to shine. If you think you would like to have his support as a grant writer, whether it's crafting your narrative, editing, proofreading, be sure to get in touch with him earlier rather than later so that he can add you to his calendar. Numbers 9 and 10, the budget and budget justification are completed with the sponsored programs office, which means that you'll work with either me or with Matthew to make sure that your numbers and forms are accurate. You will not have to do it alone. And finally, you'll need 3 letters of recommendation, 1 from your mentor and 2 other letters. My recommendation to you is that you request these letters early and give your letter writers a deadline. These letters may come to you or to sponsored programs directly. If they come to you, bring them to our office. They may be in hard copy or electronic form. Ideally, the letters are on letterhead and signed, but it's not the end of the world if they come in another format. And so that's, let's see, I want to check the questions real quick. Yes, a faculty mentor can have more than 1 student that submits a grant. and yes. So if there are any other questions, we'll have questions after the webinar as well. But next, I'd like to turn this over to my fellow grant administrator, Matthew Smith, who'll talk more about budget breakdown, financial aid considerations, and go over dates and deadlines. Thanks, Josh.
All right, I am Matthew Smith, the other grant administrator with Suzanne, and I'm going to start off with the money, which everybody I'm sure is concerned about, and how much you would get if you're funded, and that really varies on how long your project is. Dr. Ashcraft kind of mentioned it before. If it's 1, 2, or 3 semesters, we count the summer sort of as a semester. So when you sit down with your mentor to really start your project, you'll decide if you want to do spring semester only, if you want to do spring, summer, and fall. You could do a spring and summer or a spring and fall. So there's 4 options. We have 4 different budget templates on our website that we can walk you through whenever you're ready to start the application process. They're pretty simple, and part of it's pre-filled out, so you don't have to even do really the hardest part of it. But the maximum you can receive is $4,000, and that breaks down into $2,500, which is a student stipend, and that can be used by the student for pretty much whatever they see fit to really help them along with their research project. If they want to buy supplies for their project, that's great. If they want to work a late night in the lab and order pizza, that's great too. A lot of people will use it if they're working on their project and have to kind of cut some hours back at their regular job. They can use that stipend to kind of supplement, either groceries or their rent or whatever, since they're working on that project. All that's fine. And if there's any questions, we can walk you through all that. The next section, that's $2,500 if you do the full year or the spring and summer. If it's the spring only, say you graduate in May, that stipend goes down to $1,250. And then your total is $2,750. Let's see. The next part is student travel. That's $750, and that is for your research-related travel. If you're going to go, say you want to meet an expert in your field and interview them or get some research data from them, you can use that towards that. Or if you're going to go to a conference or some kind of regional meeting or state meeting to present your research when your project is over, that money can be used for airfare, hotel, conference registration, whatever you need. And then that last $750 amount is for the mentor, and that can be used in a couple different ways by the mentor. It can also be some travel money if they want to travel with the student, or if there's travel they need to do in their own research. It can be used for materials and supplies, either towards that SURF project, or if they just need some general lab supplies, materials, whatever they need. And the last option is they can use it towards their salary. It is not additional salary, but it just goes into kind of offsetting their salary that comes from their department. And there's a little note, the stipend is 50% from ADHE, Department of Higher Education, and then 50% actually comes from our office. We have a grant development fund that we use to promote research and stuff. So our office wants you to put forth the best proposal you can, because we have a stake in it too, and we want to make sure you're successful. Because this money is part of a fellowship, it's considered financial aid, and there is a state maximum that you can receive. It's usually not an issue, but if you're someone that has a large number of student loans, or you have a full scholarship that maybe gives you a little stipend on top of it, anything like that, you can max out your allowed limit for funding for the year. So if you think you might be in that situation, it would be good to call over or email the financial aid office. Just kind of explain to them what you're doing. They can pull up your account and let you know if you're reaching that limit or not. All right, dates and deadlines. Like Suzanne said, the first deadline coming up is to register, and that is just so we can kind of know who's interested, who might be looking to apply. So when we start sending out reminders and kind of the emails along the way as the process goes, we know who to contact, who to not contact. The next one is October 13th, and that is, it's an optional deadline, but it's a helpful one. It is if you have your narrative written, your 5-page narrative, or that summary, and you want Josh, the grant writer, to kind of go over it, make sure it's clear and concise, that you've met all the points of the requirements. He will be able to work with you on that, and then you'd have 2 or 3 days to kind of tweak it before this next deadline of October 19th, which is the deadline to get everything to our office, either hard copy, digital copy, however you need to. There's a bunch of different ways we can get that done. But on October 19th, we take everything, we double check, make sure everything's complete. There's some signatures we need to get, some copies we need to make, and we do all that for you. So once it's in our hands, you can kind of, the stress is kind of off. And then we put together all of those application packets for each student, and then we get them to ADHE before their submission deadline. Let's see, December 1st is if your project's going to include any kind of human element, animal element, something like that, there is the deadline to get your approvals, which Kim will talk about here in just a minute. So if you write anything up in your proposal that you need IRB approval, you can put that it's pending, and then we'll get all the approvals in place before your project actually starts January 1st. And then the last thing on here is the award notification. And that comes from our office. We get the notifications from ADHE, and then we inform all the students and mentors. It really depends every year if it's December, if it's January, like we don't know. So we apologize in advance. It's just whenever the state decides to send it to us, then we send it to all you guys. And so if it gets towards, Christmas holiday break and you haven't heard anything, don't freak out, because we may not know yet. But we'll definitely even if you funded, not funded, we will let everybody know. But of course, reach out to us if you're just like super worried about it. We're here to help you guys out.
Well, thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Suzanne. That was a lot of really great information. And again, we'll get to some of your questions here shortly. But first, I want to turn things over to our Research Compliance Officer, Kim Ashley Pauley, to talk to you all a little bit more about IRB. Kim?
I'm going to talk to you about IRB. As Matthew said, our deadline for the IRB or IACUC requirements for your application is December 1st. We made that deadline as December 1st, so that way when you do get your notification that you've been approved, it won't delay you from starting your project. Not every application for SURF requires IRB or IACUC, and I'll just explain. IRB has to do with human subjects, so if you are doing any kind of surveying or you are including human subjects in your research, you will have to get compliance in place for that. IACUC is any kind of research that involves animals. So if you will be doing anybody in biology, that maybe you're using mice or rats or some kind of animal in your research, then you would have to get IACUC approval before you start your research. There are 3 types of research applications. Those are exempt, expedited, and full. And as I just stated here, this is just what's in the laws with the common rule. The level of review is based on the level of risk involved in the research project. So what that means is we go by minimal risk.
Minimal risk means that if the probability and the magnitude of harm or discomfort anticipated in the research are greater in and of themselves than those ordinary encountered in a daily life or during the performance of routine physical or psychological examinations or tests, then that would require IRB approval, and that will, depending on the type of risk that is involved, that will be determined on what type of application. I'm not going to spend a lot of time taking up more time for the other presenters, but if you have any questions about the type of application that you need to do, you can reach out to me by phone call. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation, or you can also email. I'm always open to you contacting me and letting me help you through that process. I think I'm going to turn it over now to Surveda, or Josh, are you going to?
Yeah, so thank you, Kim. Again, we'll get to more information about how to reach out to Kim once the time comes for that. But I just wanted to take a moment to let you all introduce you all to our post-award specialist, Suveda Karakaya. Suveda?
Hi all, I'm Suveda Karakaya and I'm the post-award specialist. I usually help the faculty after they receive their grant in any post-award activity. And the basic purpose is to make sure we are complying with all the rules and regulations. In particular with regard to SURF grants, what I do is I send out the monthly reports to the PIs. So once you have an award, either Susan or Matthew will send an official award release. And then in grant accounting, Angela takes care of SURF grants, and she's gonna send you an email with your grant index number. You can use this number to check your budget in Banner or in self-service. And so usually I help the faculty for budget transfers or pre-award spending, but these don't happen in SURF. This is a small grant. So, but if you, like this summer, something happened, like due to COVID, all the travel was canceled. So the faculty couldn't do the travel. They wanted to like transfer the money, but ADHE doesn't allow budget transfers. But they were willing to do extensions, like no-cost extensions. So in case you need a no-cost extension, if something like unpredicted, like COVID happens, you write a justification and email it to me, and I will contact ADHE to get the approval to extend your grant to a later time period. So, in regard to spending, Matthew already went over like the line items and what you need to be spending. So it's like straightforward. There are only several line items, so not much worry on that. This is all in a nutshell that I help with the faculty. If you need to, like, any question about post-award activities, grant management, please feel free to contact me either through email or phone. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Suveda. Yes, we are so happy to have Suveda on our team and helping with some of these things once our faculty and our staff have received awards. So now that's all we had for the presentation today. And so I understand that we have some questions that you all have submitted, or if you have some questions that you want to go ahead and submit, please go ahead and do so. And we have some time, and hopefully as a group we can help get you get some of those questions answered.
Josh, this is Dr. Ashcraft. I did want to point out a couple of things for our participants, that to remember that SURF looks at not just quote unquote research projects, but also at scholarly projects and creative projects. So, you know, everything that's submitted doesn't have to be a true, you know, scientific research project. So I want to encourage people who want to do other types of projects, educational projects, you know, things like that, to do that. And someone asked a little bit ago about whether a mentor can have more than one student submit an application. And the answer was yes, they can, and that is correct. However, I will say that when the panel is scoring and disseminating funds based on the most appropriate applications, we try not to award, at least the first round, a mentor who already has been awarded. So we wouldn't, if we wouldn't award the same mentor 2 awards. We would try and make sure that another mentor who has a student that has an equally as good application, that we would award to 2 different mentors, just so that they could also get the experience. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, do we have any other questions that we want to go ahead and address?
Josh, there's a whole list of questions in the chat that you could probably just go through and read and ask the panelists to
Okay.
address.
Let's see here. Let's start at the top. Okay, so is this similar to a thesis proposal? I would honestly say, at least from my perspective, that this would be much simpler than a thesis proposal. Depends on your thesis, but those can get very involved. Okay. How many applicants receive funding of the 200 submitted? Well, as Suzanne noted, our funding rate varies from around 50%. Last year, we had a lot of really strong proposals, and so we had a 100% funding rate. So really, you have a strong chance of success. This, in particular, this grant program is probably the best one that I can think of for Arkansas students to kind of go for with your best chances of success.
Hey, Josh, can I add some information to that as well?
Yes, please.
So it depends on the amount of money that we have to disseminate. So if we have $105,000, then you would divide that by 2750, because that's the amount of the award that comes out of the state funding before the match from the school. So if we had 105,000 divided by 2750, we usually award approximately 40 to 45, because some applicants are only for 1 semester, and therefore we would only award them half of that money. So usually, Dr. Jordan, it's between, 40 and 45.
Okay. And so the next question is that 200 total SURF applications or 200 to the STEM reviewers? I will probably go ahead and defer to Dr. Ashcraft on that one.
That's to the STEM reviewers. There's a separate panel that reviews non-STEM applications.
Okay. So here we look like we have kind of a long one. So have another student who wants to continue with the same line of research. Should I change anything on this new proposal? So this question sounds like the research had been funded and that they want to continue on the same line of research. I would say that you would need to change up something on your proposal so that it's not just an identical proposal, but showing that you're building off of previously funded research is typically, that's a strong thing for most grant proposals. So I think that you would want to acknowledge that and show how this new line of funding is going to grow that research, expand that research, and that'll make a pretty persuasive case. Does any of the other panelists want to add anything there?
I would just say that it would be important in the application, like Josh said, to say this is a continuation of a previously funded project, and what you're adding. You say here, Dr. Louder, that you're expanding, just to say how it's expanding, so that it's not being funded for the exact same thing that it was funded for before.
Okay. So next, is this something that we can apply for only at the beginning of the year, or would this be something that we could also apply for next semester? So Matthew and Suzanne, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all cover this as you're really familiar with the deadlines.
It is one deadline per year. So it's one cycle. So you apply in the fall and then that's it. Everybody's projects start January 1st. And then they either go through May, August, or December. And then the next cycle will start next October. So it's just the once per year.
Okay. So can you review the scientific merit components again? Scientific merit components. I'm actually a little bit confused.
That was me. That was
Okay.
me.
Yes, Dr. Ashcraft, could you help there?
Yeah, in scientific merit, we're looking at things such as, again, I'm just going to read it off of our form, that addresses an area of importance to the discipline, utilizes established scientific principles, demonstrates how scientific knowledge will be gained from the study, and the problem or topic being investigated is of value to the larger scientific community. But I do want to say that those are just guidelines for the reviewers. We don't have to actually score each little piece of that. That's just kind of a description of what we mean by scientific merit.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ashcraft. Okay, so I believe we've already answered this question about can a faculty member mentor more than one student? Can I mentor two students on two separate applications? Again, I believe Dr. Ashcraft, what you said previously kind of addresses that.
You can, and it increases your chances as a faculty member of being awarded, but typically we won't award two students who have the same faculty member. Not to say we won't, but typically we don't. But sometimes they're just that good and we do.
Okay. So kind of to address this next question, if you have a full ride and are at the state stacking limits, we cannot get this fellowship question. And so I will defer to Matthew and Suzanne here to answer this. So what do y'all think?
Okay, I'll try. It's my understanding that the stipend would be used against your full ride. So if you've reached that maximum stacking amount, you could still get funded, but your other awards would be reduced. And this is where, when Matthew said to check with financial aid about this, this is a really good question to pose to the financial aid folks. And I think we've got that contact information on the checklist form that's one of your handouts. But definitely, go find out about your case in particular, and how winning this award and receiving that stipend would affect your financial aid package.
Okay, thank you. So what are the deadlines if we think we will need a full review for IRB? Kim, what do you think?
I responded to Dr. Jordan, but so the deadline I should have been more specific. So if you are thinking that you are going to have a full review, the last meeting of the semester is on November 4th. We do not hold meetings in December, and that's just because of the holidays, and it messes up the if it has to be renewed, it wouldn't get renewed in time if we were on break. So we don't hold meetings in December. So if you do need to have a full review, you would need to get the application to me by October 21st for the November 4th meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So as we saw there, so is $4,000 just for one semester, fall or spring? Would this amount be different in case of the summer? And is this money taxable? So the taxable piece is an interesting question that I have never heard before, but those are Suzanne and Matthew's areas of expertise. So Suzanne or Matthew, what do you think?
I have never heard of it being taxable. It should work just like a regular grant or fellowship or a scholarship. So that shouldn't be an issue. And then the 4,000 amount is for everybody that's not doing a spring semester only. So if it's spring and summer, or if it's spring, summer, fall, or just spring and fall, it's all $4,000. Spring only is the $2,750 amount.
And what about if they only wanted to do summer? Is that an option?
That is not an option, no.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all, I think that's all of the questions that you submitted. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to go ahead and submit through the chat? We have about 4 more minutes allocated. Well, hearing none, Matthew and Suzanne have set up a follow-up Q&A that will be available to anybody that really wants to get deep into some questions that maybe we don't have time for today, and they can send out a Zoom link to that.
Hey, Josh, I just put that into the chat, so they should be able to click on that and open it up.
Okay. Oh, but we do have one more question that just came through. If you're a freshman, what do you think about recommendations from high school teachers or mentors? I actually think that sounds pretty awesome if they can speak to your scholarly merit. Dr. Ashcraft, do you think there's a precedent for that kind of thing?
No, there's not. I agree with your answer. If they can speak to your dedication and drive and ambition and all those things that we look for in people who are going to engage in some sort of scholarly project, then I think that's absolutely fine for a freshman, because they will be the ones who have most recently worked with you and are probably some of the same people that submitted letters of recommendation for you with your college applications or other things.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all so much. Let me go back here. Here's all of our contact information, and this is quite a bit of contact information, but you can always reach us here or on our website, and you are most welcome for this presentation, and we are here to help you, and thank you for your time. So with that, that's all I have.